Hi, in today's video I'm going to show you how you can subscribe to YouTube channels or playlists with Emacs and play the videos with MPV player. So this is DistroTube, and you can subscribe to YouTube channels using the RSS feed, but that only gives you the last 10 or 15 videos. What I wanted to be able to do was to be able to have a list of all of a channel's videos in an org mode document that I could then open the links with MPV. So this is how it works. What we've got here is a Emacs org file, and what we're going to be doing is creating a block of code up here, which we've given a name called noweb block. And you can see we've got a beginning and ending source block of code, which is a shush file, the shush syntax. And in this block of code, what we're going to do is use YouTube DL with the dump JSON output, which is the -j option, and flat playlist, which means don't download the videos. And what we're going to do is pipe that into JQ, which is a command line program that manipulates JSON. And what we're going to do is reformat the output of the JSON so that it's actually a org mode link, which we can open with MPV by creating a custom URL handler that will open all YouTube links with MPV player. So what we're going to do is first of all have a bit of tea, and I'll explain how this works. What we're doing is we're using, as I said, YouTube DL, the -j option to dump the JSON, that playlist, and then this URL variable, which I'll get into later. And that's going to be the URL of the channel or playlist. We're then going to pipe that into JQ with these options, which I think is recursive, and J for don't add extra spacing. And what we're doing is we're extracting the ID and the title from the JSON output. Now, YouTube outputs JSON for both individual videos and for playlists and channels. And on the channels and playlists, basically, you can just get the link and the title. So what we're doing is the ID corresponds to the actual URL of the video, which is just going to be the ID. So normally with a YouTube link, it would be YouTube, slash, and then the ID of the video. The JSON output just gives us the ID. It doesn't give us the full URL. So what we're doing is we're prepending the YouTube DL and the YouTube link to each of the IDs, so it gives us the full URL, and we're also extracting the title. And what you can see here is these brackets here. So we're creating an org link which starts with the link and then the description. So we're prepending the YouTube link to the ID, which gives us the link in the first bit, and then the description is going to be the title. So the way that this works is, I'll come down to DistroTube here, pull this down. What you see here is we've got another block of code, another source block. First of all, it has a name DistroTube, and then we have a header option with a variable, and then URL, and the URL to the channel, the videos page. So this is the videos page here, channel DistroTube videos. So channels also have either the short name or the long name, which is sort of like a list of characters. You can use either. But this URL variable here, that's actually going to be passed to this block here. So what we're doing is we're creating two source code blocks. The first one which accepts this URL variable, and then the second we're defining that variable as the channel link to all the channel with all the videos. Now what we've got here is the source block. You can see this is a shush source block, so this is shellcode. Then what we're doing is we're using the asynchronous option, which is something you have to set up in Emacs, which I'll show you. Basically what that does is that allows the code to run. We're going to actually run this code from within Emacs. What it does is it allows it to run in the background, and because otherwise what happens is the Emacs will basically lock up while the script is running, and we don't want that. So we're saying asynchronous, so this can run in the background. Then we're going to put the results, the output of the results, in a list format. And this next section here is noweb, and this is the magic. This is what lets us sort of interact between the two blocks. So the option after that is wrap, and what that's going to do is that's going to wrap the results in a begin results block. So you can see down here inside the source code block we have this two angled brackets and then noweb block, and that is the name of this block up here. What we're doing is we're actually running that block of code in here. We're taking the output of that block of code, running it in here, and passing in the URL. So the URL here is going to be passed into this URL here, and it's going to be run inside this block. And the way that you run blocks is you run Control-C, Control-C on the block, and what that will do is that will output the results of that code into Emacs in a begin results little drawer that we can toggle on and off. And as you can see here, this is all outputted as a list, and you can see all these videos here correspond to these videos here. So that should be, okay, that's the first video there. See, come back to this, you can see I then have the entire channel, list of all the links. Back up, so I've got the list of all the links of the videos, and I can now run Control-C, Control-O, and that's going to open the video in MPV player in 4 or 5 seconds. So it just takes a second for it to fire.
Today I'm going to be taking a quick first look at the
MPV player, so you can see there, that's the video. And so basically the way this works is we define some custom code in Emacs to enable the asynchronous option and create a list of URLs that will be handled by MPV player. So if I come across to my Emacs file, look for async option. So there's a couple of things with async. What you can do is you can use this block of code here to hide the asynchronous output buffer, because by default it opens a new buffer for the to display the progress of the command, but we can suppress that with this block of code. And the next thing that we need to do is we actually need to require ob-async. And what that basically allows us to do, I can't remember if you have to install that as a package as well. You may have to sort of, search melpa and find the ob-async package. So that's the first step. And the next step is to create a function for MPV to use it as a browser, and then basically we can create different URLs that will then be played by that MPV function. So what we do is we create this MPV play URL function. What that's going to do is that's going to start MPV, and then what we do down in this next step here is we define this block of code which is browse URL browser function. And what this allows you to do is to create different URLs that will be opened by different browsers. So in this instance, we're creating a sort of regular expression that will catch all YouTube links. And then open them with the MPV play URL function. And at the bottom, what we do is we create another little block of code that will basically says anything else apart from that will be open with the default browser, which in my case is Firefox. So what this will do, this will make any YouTube link in an org document open in MPV player. So to recap, we had the ob-async. We can hide the asynchronous output buffer here. We then require ob-async, and at the bottom we define this function to open links with MPV, and then set certain URLs to open with that browser that we've created. So what I'll do is come across here and run through this again with another example. If we come to say HexDSL's YouTube channel here, so if I come across and search for HexDSL, you go to the videos tab and see this is the first video. Now you can't get the, I don't think you can get the URLs for the thumbnails from the JSON output for a channel. You can only get the thumbnail links if you output the JSON for an individual page. And also the other thing is you can't display remote images in Emacs anyway. So there isn't a way to create something that shows the thumbnail and the title. But this is the block of code first of all here. The header with the variable, using the noweb block in the source here. And again, we define asynchronous output, results output list, noweb yes, and wrap. And what that does is that outputs the results like this. And then I can come down and if you don't want this as a list, you can also change the output from list to raw. So you don't have this here, but I find it easier to read as a list. And then I simply come across onto a link and CO, that's Control C, Control O, give it a couple of seconds, and it will open. So let's have another look at how this works and then perhaps create one from scratch. So first of all, we've got the title of the org mode document, startup overview. And basically what that does is it starts it up so it looks like this. The next option we have is hide blocks, and basically what that does is that sets the blocks to be collapsed. So we have the noweb block with the YouTube DL code that dumps the JSON for the URL, pipes it into JQ, prepends the YouTube link to the ID and grabs the title and formats it as an org link. And then we have the second block of code. Each has its own name. We create a header with a variable for the URL, and that's the URL of the channel or the playlist. We have the source code block with the asynchronous output, putting the results in a list with a noweb yes and wrap. And you can see here, this is how we reference the noweb block up here, because that's the name, noweb block there. And what that does is that basically puts this block of source code in here. And the advantage of this is it means you only have to write that block of source code once, this bit here, rather than putting this in each thing down here. If you wanted to change it and to reformat it, you'd have to go through and change it in multiple instances of the code. Whereas by using the noweb block, what we can do is pull in this block of code and run it in here. So again, that takes the URL here, passes it into this, which move the cursor about, which is then executed here, and the results output underneath. Okay, so what I'll do now is create a new item. So let's go Magpie channel, and what I'm going to do is grab this block of code, stick it down here, and change the name here and then the URL. So we'll change the URL, and I'll come across here and search for Magpie channel, and what you need to do is you need to come to the videos tab. We'll grab the URL in there. So we've basically got the name and then URL. That's all we need to do. You hide that, and then Control C, Control C, and sometimes you'll get this error: error in process sentinel, invalid read syntax, hash symbol. Basically, what I found is sometimes when that happens, just quit Emacs and restart it. Down here, open that, Control C, executing source code block. And you can see it's going to take about 10-15 seconds depending on the size of the channel. You can see here we've got all the videos, and that corresponds to here. So this is the West Brom versus Newcastle lineup prediction. So if I come across here and just CO, Control C, Control O, that's going to open up in
Buongiorno everyone, welcome back to Lineup Predictions.
So that basically means that got a list of all my channels I want to watch. If I want to watch something from Kai Hendry, lots of videos down here. Why not on Apple microphone? Give it a couple of seconds and it's going to open up.
This here, what I'm talking through now.
So again, you're going to have the noweb block up here, and then all the channels listed underneath. So if I want to come across to this one here, and the other nice thing about this is that we have the output in a begin end results source code block that we can toggle open and closed. So here's a video about macOS machines made and virtual machines made easy. Just Control C, Control O. Give it a couple of seconds.
Today we're going to
Full screen.
Install Mac OS.
And close that. So it's really nice and easy to import all the stuff, and basically when you want to update it, you just run Control C again. There is a cache option that you can use with this, but what I found is it's a bit iffy. It doesn't actually pick up the new video, so when you run Control C again, it doesn't always update. So it was a bit hit and miss, so that's why I'm not using that option. So if I come back here and just do Control C again, it's going to run that block of code again, and it's going to output the results. I can come across do any of these videos. A couple of seconds to open up. And I can toggle these closed. So let's have a quick look at the Emacs config again, just to refresh memory. Again, you can hide the output the async buffer in this block of code here. And then we're going to require ob-async, and I think you've got to install that. I don't think it's something that's kind of like installed and not activated or something. And then finally, at the bottom, we created a function to turn MPV into a browser that we can then open based on particular URLs. So that's the function to run MPV. And this is the browse URL browser function. And in this, you can create a list of URLs that you want to open with particular browsers. So if you wanted to open all YouTube videos with MPV, you could do that, or Vimeo, or anything else that's supported by YouTube DL. You could also use it to open things like Google Meet's going to always open in Chromium, whereas other stuff's going to open in EWW, which is the built-in browser for Emacs, and at the bottom we set browse URL default browser, which will basically open all other links in your default browser, which in my case is Firefox. So that's the Emacs setup. That's how you can create an org document that uses noweb, YouTube DL and JQ, and create a source code block that you reference from another source code block, and pass in a URL variable into there, execute it, and output the results into the same document basically, and then click any, and then be able to click any of these links.
Today I'm going to be taking a quick...
I'm not sure if just clicking the link may also... is that going to work? Yeah.
I've been...
So I can actually click any of these with the mouse as well, and they will also open in MPV. And basically, to update this, you just run Control-C, Control-C on the source code block, and it's going to update, bring in the latest videos by passing the JSON for the channel or the playlist, and output it as a list. Now I've put this on, as an example, I've put this up on GitHub, and this is the org mode document. You can see here it's just showing the code here in the no web block here. It's not actually showing all of the actual org code and the links that I've output. So what you do is you come across here and click raw, and that's going to show you the full bit of org mode code. So here you'll see there's all the code, there's the header, URL, and then basically all the links of channels. So you can see this is how it's formatted. We have the link and then the description. So that's the link and that's the title. So this bit here, this is the ID. So if we come across and have a look at the this bit of code here, you'll see got the ID. That's the ID from the JSON output, and then we've got the title. So that's the ID, and we're prepending that bit of code before the ID here. You can see bit here, YouTube, before the ID, and then title, and that's what formats it as an org link. So those are the org links, and that's then formatted like this in the result. Links that you can either come across and run Control-C, Control-O, or just click the links with the mouse and they'll open with MPV Player. So that's how you can use Emacs, org mode, noweb, YouTube DL, and JQ to subscribe to any channel or playlist on YouTube. Have the output back into Emacs, have easy to click links to open any of these videos in MPV player. And so the advantage of this is that, unlike using something, if I come across and do news boat, you can see here, for instance, if I come across to the Magpie channel, I've got the last 50 here, showing the last 50. But as you can see, some of these channels have more than 50 items. And I think that just may be because I've subscribed to them and they've sort of built up the list of channels. I think you may only get a list of 10 latest videos using RSS. So the advantage is here's DistroTube, as well as bastard. Whereas in the org document of the full sort of list, I think it's a lot more than 50. I can come across and watch any of these old videos. A couple of seconds. Yeah. And I can also toggle this closed, toggle each of these closed, so it makes it really easy to come through, go through any of the channels. So if I want to just, there we go, emacs and Magic.
Hey, everybody.
Of course, the other thing it means that you can, you can search for stuff. So xmonad. So there's a video, DistroTube about xmonad. There's another one. So it just means I can search through all the videos for a particular bit of text, whether it's like emacs, xmonad, Linux, and I can find the video and play it really easily, all from within one text file that is really easy to keep updated because you're just reusing this block of code. And as I said, when I created the new block here, all I had to do was copy the block of code, change the name. You can see the name, the results corresponds to the name up here, and change the URL variable. Run it with Control-C, Control-C. Outputs the results here, and then Control-C, Control-O will open any of the links, or you can just click on the link and it's going to open it. So it's a really nice way to be able to keep a list of all the video channels, all of the videos in a channel, be able to search for them really easily and open them. And of course, you could also create another variable, sort of another browser with emacs to use YouTube DL and download the video instead of opening it with MPV player. So you could, but then that would open. That would mean that the links would, all links would open, would automatically download instead of play. I haven't found a way to sort of create a different browser and run it with a different key combination. So this is going to basically mean all YouTube links will open in MPV player, but if you didn't want to do that, as I said, you could change it to something like, YouTube UL. You could change that to YouTube DL, whatever, call that function whatever, and change this to YouTube DL, I guess, here, and then call the function. It should download the video instead of opening it with MPV player. But that's how you can create different URLs that are handled by different browsers in Emacs, so that any YouTube links will now open with MPV player. As I said, you can do this with any link, you know, that's supported by YouTube, DL, Vimeo, or any other sort of video sites, and it will then open the links in MPV player instead of your regular browser. So that's the setup in Emacs. That's how it looks in a text file. Really easy. If I just close that, no, save that. What I'll do, just open it again. So you can see this hide blocks. What that does is that toggles these blocks closed, so you can see. So rather than opening with all these open, they just open like that, and I can come in, come down here, toggle that open. And then open the link really easily. So that's basically how you can get a single text file with all your YouTube descriptions, the links to all the videos in the channel, and be able to open any of the links really easily and search throughout all the channels that you subscribe to for a particular string of text. So, you know, if I wanted to write like Steve Bruce, it's going to come up with something here about the Steve Bruce Matt Ritchie bust up. I can open that. Give it a second.
The circus.
So that means it's just really easy to find what I'm looking for on any channel. You know, if I'm trying to figure out, how do I do this? I'm sure I saw a video on that. I've now got a complete list of, you know, all the channels I might have watched that thing, and then I can search for it and really easily, you know, open it. So something like NDI. I was trying to find something with like NDI as in NDI for OBS, but maybe there isn't a link there for that. But makes it really easy to just come through. You can toggle these open and closed. Come through, select any of these, and play them really easily. So it's just an alternative to being on YouTube and having to search through all the channels, trying to find what you're looking for. You know, coming here, searching for something rather than looking through all this. You can just basically use a text file and search through the text file, find the video, and open it. So that's something I've been working on as an alternative to just subscribing to channels with Newsboat, which is only going to give you, you know, maybe the last 10-20 videos. This way you've got a list of all the videos in a channel or a playlist, and you can open them up really easily. And of course, because it's just an org file, what you can do is copy that to another machine, and you've got the same setup on another machine.